Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds, owner of Mint Mobile, with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
New activation and upfront payment for 3-month plan required. Taxes and fees extra. Additional restrictions apply. See mintmobile.com for full terms.
'Tis the season to shine with H&M. Discover the holiday collection and find fashionable pieces for your wardrobe or for under the tree. Get inspired and dazzle with this year's glam. From tuxedo styles, bow detailed pieces, impressive prints, and more. From unforgettable looks to unforgettable gifts. With fashion finds to home decor, find it all at H&M. Treat your loved ones and yourself this season. Shop in-store or at hm.com.
If you're feeling just this overwhelming feeling, say something. I know you're scared. I mean, shit, if anybody knows, I definitely know you're scared. I've been there. And I'm here to tell you, like, there's so much healing when we're able to validate what we're experiencing in that moment. Hey, my name is Veronica Cisneros, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, a mama of 3 girls, and married for 23 years. I am obsessed with helping you navigate through the seasons of marriage, helping couples like you break free from feeling like roommates. I will teach you the secrets to having a healthy marriage by providing tools and tips to help you reconnect in a way that you can't keep your hands off each other, where flirting and kissing is the norm in your household. Setting intentional time to date, get to know and support each other's dreams and goals so that you can grow together without keeping score or judging one another. Where you feel seen and heard even when you disagree. Where arguments end with mutual respect and understanding. Where you work together to build and strengthen your family so no one feels like they're carrying the weight of the family on their own. These are the necessary skills your children need for you to model so that they develop healthy relationships and thrive in life. This is the Empowered and Unapologetic Podcast. Who is ready? I don't know about you guys, but I am like totally stoked about this episode. Here's why. It is a podcast takeover. Well, what the hell is a podcast takeover? Well, let me share it with you. Both Lucy and Nahal invited me over to their podcast, Women's Wellness Podcast. And that interview was so good, I decided it would be, I need to do my due diligence and share this podcast episode with my audience. And so Women's Wellness Podcast is a podcast by and about BIPOC women who are going through the healing process. They hold space for women to share their unique stories, created with the love for storytelling and passion for mental health and wellness in mind. They aim to help amplify voices of women everywhere. So this right here was a really personal conversation, and the questions they asked, I just had to share with you because it really does fit the essence of being empowered and unapologetic. In this podcast, I go over my generational trauma and some of the struggles I had endured. In addition to that, I cover how to maintain a healthy and happy relationship. So make sure you grab your pen and paper because, like always, you're definitely going to want to take notes. And I'm super excited to share this with you and hear some of your feedback.
So let's just dive right in with our first question because I know Nahal is very excited for this one.
I know. I've been itching for this conversation. I feel like it's such an important topic. And I know everyone listening is going to walk away with just feeling heard and seen, I believe, because let's face it, no matter what kind of background you come from, what ethnicity, what country, everyone has trauma, like either in the lifetime that they're living now or the grandparents or great grandparents. So I wanted to ask you, how do we know, like, not everybody's going to therapy. So how would someone know that they're operating out of like a trauma response? Like, are there telltale signs?
I love this question. So yes and no. So with that generational trauma, that intergenerational trauma, it's really hard to pinpoint. Here's why. This is what's familiar for us, right? Like, we don't know any difference. Let me give you a quick example. So I grew up, my dad was a heroin addict, an alcoholic, a gang member. And I grew up in that, although we didn't grow up in like the hood, but I grew up in that mindset, right? Like, it was, if I definitely had my phones tapped, right? And so did you, duh. Like, I just assumed that you did as well, and, of course, like, my dad does drugs, but so does yours, right? Or like, this is just the way family is. So is yours, right? And it wasn't until, so I went to, obviously I went to grad school, and part of, graduating and being able to pursue my career as a therapist, you have to have so many hours of your own personal therapy. And so there I am sitting in the therapist office, telling her, sharing a past story of mine, a past memory. And I'm sharing the past memory, and I'm like cool as a cucumber, telling her about like how my, some guy hit on me and was really disrespectful to me. So my dad just took care of it. And I remember like the therapist looking at me like wide-eyed, and she just kind of like stopped writing. And I was already confused on why she was writing to begin with, because that part didn't matter. I was getting to the good part. So it was like, didn't make sense to me, right? I'm like, why are you writing? Like, I didn't even get to the good part yet. And so I'm telling her, well, this guy hit on me, and then he called me a bad word, right? I don't know if we cuss on here, so I'm gonna keep it clean.
But it's fine. Whatever you desire.
Okay, so he came up to me and he's like, hey, can I get your number? And I'm like, you know what? My parents were picking me up, like, I'm good, and he's like, dude, just give me your number. And I'm like, no, I'm good. And he's like, damn, what a bitch. And he walked away, right? So he walks away, and me and my friend were just like, whatever. And then one of his friends literally ran to him, and he's like, dude, do you know who you're talking to? And he's like, man, she's just this bitch, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, no. That's Güero's daughter. And I guess the guy had known who my dad was. My dad was obviously, he was a head honcho of a gang. He's like, no, that's Güero's daughter. And the guy that had previously approached me ran to me, and he's like, oh my God, I am so sorry. Please forgive me. Like, all of a sudden he's like begging me to forgive him. Well, my dad pulls up. I thought it was going to be my mom, but my dad pulls up, and he sees this guy like just apologizing to me. And my dad gets out of the car, and, me and my friend just casually walk to the car. And my dad looks over to his friend who had warned him who I was. And my dad was like, take care of it. And then he told us to get in the car, and we left. And, I remember the therapist going, take care of it. Like, what was okay? Like, what happened? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, the guy took care of it. But anyway, so like, this is what I'm trying to get at. And so I was trying to get her to like follow me, my story, my memory. And she was so laser, like so focused on, Veronica, do you find anything wrong? Because you just say he took care of it casually. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like completely confused. Like, why is she still stuck on this? Like, let's move on. And not that I was like, I didn't care about the person, but it was my norm. And obviously it's a pretty extreme norm, and now being a therapist, it's like, oh, okay, wait a minute. Wait, that's not really normal, right?
What exactly did he actually do something like to take care of it part? Like, fill me in a little bit. I know I'm like, do I just fill that in?
Well, so he ended up getting beat up. The guy totally getting beat up. He didn't die. But the guy totally got beat up. And, it was just the way things were handled back then. Like, and I shouldn't say handled back then, but because I don't want to speak in general for everybody, but like for me and for like what I grew up knowing, that was my norm. And so when you ask this question on what are some key identifiers, it's so hard to pinpoint because you're so used to a certain lifestyle, that anything else, it's like you don't know until you're introduced to it. And the minute you're introduced to it, you're like, oh, wait a minute. This actually happens, or this is the way mom and dads act towards each other. Like they don't yell. There's no domestic violence. Like this is completely foreign. And so you don't know unless you know. And I guess when you start developing that realization is when you start educating yourself or when you start being exposed to different norms.
That is interesting. And it just made me think of something. Do you think on the flip side of that also, like say, because you just mentioned like being in a relationship where everything is peaceful and you actually get along with someone and you communicate effectively, whatever. Sometimes I feel this is what I've seen happen is that the other person may feel like this is boring. Yeah. This is uncomfortable. Yes. This feels like I need to disrupt this because it feels unnatural. And like, so that is really interesting.
I love that you bring this up. I totally love that you bring this up. So as you guys know, I've been married for 23 years, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so my husband and I, his dad wasn't a gang member, but his biological dad also struggled with heroin, and addiction. And so there was some level of familiarity, right? And like I mentioned earlier, I didn't grow up in the hood, but my husband did. And so there was also this form of like, okay, we can understand each other.
Right.
However, my husband grew up in a household where like physical touch, like hugging and like, hugging was kind of like the norm. And there wasn't a lot of emotional expression, but there was a little bit more of involvement as like, with his mom and his stepdad. And so there was a little bit more of involvement. And so when my husband and I would argue, well, I grew up with my dad just completely avoiding or going into lashing out, but his lashing out involved domestic violence. And with my mom would just kind of be submissive. And she would be submissive, and then she would explode, and then my dad would leave. In his household, his mom was a little bit more of the, I guess I would call her like the aggressor, like she would put her foot down more. There was domestic violence in his household as well with his biological father. But like there was different roles. There was totally different roles. So when Willie and I would get into arguments in the first years of our marriage, I took my dad's role. I was like, I'm out. I'm out. Like, I get to leave. Like, if I'm going to pick one of these roles to be in, like, hell yeah, my dad looked like he had it so much easier than my mom. So I'm out. I mean, I didn't cheat, like my dad did, but those are the things I would do. Where my husband, he would try to have conversations with me. And then if he seen that I was a little bit overwhelmed emotionally, what he would do is he would lock himself in the room. He wouldn't leave. He would just lock himself in the room. And it was like, what the hell is going on here?
Well, wait, he would lock both of you in the room.
No, hell no. I
himself.
In that room. He
yeah.
I in the room.
Yeah. He wanted to get away.
Yes.
Where do I go?
Like, so for both of us in the beginning stages of our marriage, we were trying to figure out what our roles were and how it fit in our marriage. But what was literally, I what was literally interfering with that ability was we were trying to stick with what's familiar, regardless of how unhealthy it was. We were trying to stick with what was familiar, but it wasn't really working for us, you know? And it wasn't working for us because we had no skills on how to communicate with each other, like zero. We didn't.
How many years were you married when you guys were communicating like this? Was it in the very first couple of years?
Yes. I would say the first 4 years, that's how it went. And it wasn't until our divorce. Like, so we ended up going through a moment where we were 1 month away from divorce. Yeah. It was we had just had our daughter, Aaliyah. And we separated. So Aaliyah was born in August. We separated in October. So she was only a couple months old.
Oh my gosh.
And we were just like, okay, well, this is the way it's going to go. For me, it was like, what the hell is happening? He was a drill instructor. And although we were both warned in the military, especially if you're a drill instructor, after he graduated from being a DI, they had told us, listen, your marriage has about 96% chance of failing. Like, just know this.
What in the world?
96%. They took all of us wives in the room and they said, congratulations, your husband's a drill instructor. Look to the left, look to the right. 96% of you will not be here at the end of this tour.
Wait, what is it about the profession that doesn't allow for that?
Yeah, no, of course. Great question. So with drill instructors, those are the ones with the Smokey Bear hats, right? That are like yelling at the recruits.
Yeah.
They're in that role for 3 years. They're in that role for 3 years. As a drill instructor, you are gone. Like, you are in the barracks with your recruits. You're not like, literally you become this robot. And I know that's so crazy to say and like even process, but literally you are conditioned to become a robot for obvious reasons, right?
Well,
right? For obvious reasons. But like, I didn't realize how much this was going to impact our marriage, because Willie was legit. Like, he wouldn't sleep. And he would come home with like, when he would come home, he'd come home maybe for like an hour, 2 or 3 to sleep. And I would want to like talk to him, and I was home, pregnant. So it was like, I wasn't with anybody. We had moved away. And so it's like, there's literally this seclusion. And with our already unhealthy skills, we had no clue that literally was going to be the demise of us.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And I imagine being a drill instructor, like, you have this very authoritative kind of persona you have to consistently have. And then when you go home, how do you like turn it off?
Oh, girl.
Right?
Yeah. There was a time I remember, oh my God, what did he say? He like said some line, and I can't even remember.
Was it like, attention?
No.
Yeah.
Oh no, girl. He would have had a chancla. He would have had a chancla being thrown at him. Hell no. No, I remember. Do you understand? I remember him saying that like harshly. Do you understand? And I was like, oh hell. I remember how this went, and this ain't gonna go down the way it went down with my mom. Like, oh hell no. Right?
You're gonna tell your daddy. He better know.
Yeah, exactly. Oh hell no.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I remember there being that disconnect. And there were other things that were happening in our marriage that, again, what we were familiar with, those roles we were familiar with, been taught, wasn't serving our marriage. It wasn't serving it.
And so when did you guys realize that together, or was it something that you realized and communicated to him? How did that happen?
Yeah, great question. So none of us communicated it because we didn't know that was what was wrong.
Right.
That's the thing. Like, and that's the trouble with most marriages, most relationships. You don't know what you don't know. And so for us, it's like, wait a minute. Why aren't you loving me? Why aren't you allowing me to love you? Like, just be this way. You just have to be this way, and I love you, and everything will be okay.
Right.
But, on the opposite end, it's like, well, if you were just this way, then I could love you and everything would be okay. So we're both in this combative war zone, not even knowing that our weapons are always drawn.
Always on the defense.
Bingo. We had no clue. Again, like, you just take care of it. Like, that's just the way things are. So when you're looking at me saying, well, Veronica, this guy called me, bitch. It's like, well, where's your dad? So he can go, jack his ass up. Like, right? Like, oh, okay, well, there's ways to take care of it. Why are you telling me? You know what I mean? Like, where's your dad? Or, well, let's go ahead and handle it or whatever, like, how are we going to do this? So you don't know what you don't know. And again, this is why, and it's not only marriages, it's most relationships. This is why we stay on the defensive and we personalize everything.
Everything. 100%. Yes.
Yeah. The ego is very active, like all the
time. Bingo.
And then we feel like they should know what we've been through, and we make excuses for, well, I went through this in my childhood, so you should have sympathy, or like, this is how you treat me. But nobody can read your mind, and they don't get the manual from, like the backpack of all the what is it called? Luggage, or like
the baggage.
The baggage that we all carry into our relationships.
Because we all have it. So would you recommend like therapy? Obviously, that's a big one. Like going to couples therapy before, so you can kind of unpack all of these things together. I feel like sometimes sometimes too, I feel like we don't even know what we need to unpack, right? No. So certain relationships trigger certain things and it comes out and you're like, whoa, I didn't even know I had all of this stuff to work through.
Bingo. So when you start to feel that disconnection, a lot of us are like, well, we're just in a bad place. We're just in a bad season. Things will be okay. The reality is, no, this right here is your red flag. If you've been looking for red flags, this right here is your red flag. And it's time for you to get help. And one of the primary reasons why it's time for you to get help is because you don't know how to take the next steps towards healing. What you've learned is not sufficient enough to withstand the storm that's about to come.
Yeah.
And although we're all, we all can be stubborn at times, like, it's fine. Listen, I would not play Russian roulette with my marriage. I would not play Russian roulette with any of my relationships. And if I find that I am struggling to connect, if I find that, maybe some of the signs are, trying to control the relationship. One of the primary reasons why we try to control our relationship, or the minute our partner says, damn, no matter what I do, it's never enough. If you're hearing those things, no matter what I do, it's never enough. I wish you would desire me more. I wish we would connect more. I wish we would be able to see eye to eye. Like that right there, the minute you're saying all of those things, that right there is saying, hey, what's happening right now isn't working. And so we have to recruit help. Otherwise, we are going to rely on time to go ahead and heal. And it's not. I see many women, and this is part of the reason why, outside of my practice, I started creating courses and I'm hosting retreats and workshops, because I've noticed that this is a little bit of an ongoing pandemic for all of us. Yeah. We don't know what we don't know. And most of the time when we make a move, I don't want to say it's too late, but you better have a really good damn therapist that knows their craft, because you're now relying on that person to determine your life. And we don't want that.
And that's really interesting. And it brings me to this question. Okay, so if we are married to someone who doesn't share the same traumas or experiences that we experience, how do we inform them? Like, what's the language? Like, how do we communicate that to them?
Of course. So I remember Willie and I, this is after we had done some work. But I remember there was a point where I felt alone in our marriage. And again, this is the beginning stages. I felt so alone in the marriage. And I remember it felt as if I was suffering silently. I didn't know what it was, but I knew the feeling. I knew that it just didn't feel right. And I remember saying it out loud. And it was one of the most vulnerable states I had ever been. And again, this was unfamiliar. In my household, you were never vulnerable. In my household, you never cried. I mean, even when my dad died, I was not allowed to cry. Like, crying is a sign of weakness, right? And it's just, this is just the way it is. And so I remember feeling this heaviness, and there was a part of me that didn't want to say it. Because again, now you're putting yourself in his corner. Now he's gonna have full control over you, and that's the last thing you want. You know, but it was like, I couldn't do this anymore. I knew I couldn't do this anymore. Not that I couldn't do the marriage anymore, but I couldn't feel this way anymore.
Yeah.
And so I remember saying it out loud. And then the craziest thing, Willie had never like hit me or anything, but it was kind of like I flinched, not like fear of him hitting me, but like fear of how he was going to either react or respond to what I had just said. I'd never done this before. And so I remember saying it, and then him just looking at me, and I'm like, well, shit. You know, why did I say that? Idiots. Why would you say that out loud? Now the ball's in his corner. You know, now he has control over you. Because again, that's what I grew up thinking. And I remember
it's that vulnerability.
Oh God, yes. And I remember, you know, him looking at me and him saying, because what I had said to him was, you know, when you're mad at me, I feel like you stop loving me. And
oh my God.
Wow.
And I remember him looking at me, and we were like, I was literally washing dishes and he was like chopping up vegetables. And I remember him looking at me and saying, Veronica, just because we're mad at each other doesn't mean that I stop loving you. And I remember when he said that, there was a part of me that obviously wanted to believe him. But there was the other part of me that was like, there's no way in hell that this is real. Like, there's no way. There's no way this is real. He must want something. Like, he has to want something.
Yeah.
Transactional.
Yeah, exactly. And then I remember saying, and I'm like, I can't believe I'm saying this right now. Like, I totally can't believe I'm saying this right now. Like, and I remember trying to convince myself, like, Veronica, shut up. Don't say it. Don't say it. Don't say it. But I remember telling him, you're the one person that could hurt me the most. And it was one of those things that I kind of like said, like, you're the one person that could hurt me the most. Done. Shut up, Veronica. Shut up. Like, really quick. Like, just shut up. You know, because it was like, I liked what was happening, but then it was scary.
Yeah.
You know? And then he looked at me and he just held me. And I'm like, there was a part of me that wanted to fight him. Like, literally, like, punch him in the face. You know, and there was a part of me that wanted to fight him. There was a part of me that just wanted to be held. There was a part of me that wanted to cry. There was a part of me that was like trying to suck it in, like, suck it up, Veronica. We don't cry. You know, like, stop being a little bitch. Like, there was all of these feelings. And I remember, like, holy shit, this feels good. I want more of this. I want more of this. And that right there is what I would definitely recommend for your listeners to do. Like, if you're feeling just this overwhelming feeling, say something. I know you're scared. I mean, shit, if anybody knows, I definitely know you're scared. I've been there. And I'm here to tell you, like, there's so much healing when we're able to validate what we're experiencing in that moment.
To verbalize it out loud.
Yeah.
Oh, God, yes.
And I
give
love
it the
that.
air.
Yeah.
God, give it a voice.
Oh, my goodness. I could just like see myself also being held, because I resonate with what you're saying. Like, I'm the type that, you know, avoid it. Is that what they call it? Like attachment style? Like, avoid it, just disconnect, go do my own thing. But wow, the vulnerability that you just shared with us, I feel like we can all do a little bit more of that in our relationships. And this brings me to a question I had. So Yeah. What is your number one way to like overcome this? Like, is there a therapy modality that you recommend? I know there's so many out there now. There's like EMDR. Of course, there's talk therapy. But in your practice, have you noticed a certain kind of modality or style that's been the most effective?
Definitely. So the style that I've noticed that's been extremely effective is cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT.
My
CBT.
favorite,
Right?
my personal favorite. Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I've noticed that one has been so effective is because our thoughts, we are under the belief that they are 1,000% true. Like it's 1,000% true.
Yeah.
You know, and unless we're shown how and why they're distorted, and if we have this generational trauma where everybody thinks the same, you know, no, like in my household, never depend on a man. Never depend on a man. You know, that was like literally the statement. Like that was, if you were a girl, that's exactly the conversation that was going to be had with you.
Yes.
Never, ever depend on a man because he's going to cheat on you and he's going to leave you.
Make sure you have something.
Bingo.
Of your own.
Hell yeah.
Oh goodness, I've heard it all. Yes.
Right? Make sure you have your own checking account. And
Independent.
Bingo. Make sure you have your own checking account. If you don't have your own checking account, you know, have your own money stored away and just hide it. Hide it and don't ever tell him. And so in my, you know, for me, it was like, okay, I need a line, you know, I need to make sure I keep money away and, you know, my husband's going to cheat on me and my husband's going to leave me. That was like my ongoing running theme. That was a thought. And so that thought was actually so predictive of my behavior.
Yes.
I'm not going to connect with him. I'm not going to open up with him. I'm going to store all of these emotions because he's going to cheat on me and he's going to leave me.
Right.
How distorted is that thought?
Yeah, the thoughts create the feelings.
Bingo.
Yep.
The feelings create the behavior. So it's like, okay.
Well, the other missing component there, and that's where we throw in some DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy.
I love that one.
Recognizing the interaction between the thoughts, the emotions, and that physiological response, your body's sensation.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
The fight or flight.
Bingo. So when you have these thoughts, you know, when you have these thoughts, when you have these emotions, and your body is reacting to these emotions, guess what we end up going into? We end up acting on our impulses and urges, and we stay there. But when somebody teaches you, wait a minute, you're actually catastrophizing. Here's why you're catastrophizing. You're actually overgeneralizing. You're using always and never, you know, dichotomous thinking. Let's go ahead and break that down. You know, what's happening for you in your body? Well, I don't know. No, let's go ahead and break it down. When you feel resentment, where do you feel that? Well, I mean, I guess my heart starts to race and I guess my stomach, you know, I start to feel nauseous and I feel tightness. Okay. Now take me through where frustration feels. Where's frustration in your body? But what those two modalities, you start to develop an understanding of how you are reacting to the world instead of responding. And now you have a clear understanding of, wait a minute, although I've had these thoughts, there's no proof. There's no true proof that these are facts. They're distorted thinking, and here's why. And now I could break it down. I don't have to rely on a therapist, but now I could totally break it down because I have these skills. And I now understand how I react and how now I can change that and challenge this thought so that I can respond.
Wow, I love that.
Oh my gosh, that was
not reacting,
powerful.
responding. Yeah.
Right?
I'm writing these down.
Me too. It's like taking notes.
DBT.
Yeah. No, it is such a powerful skill. And I wish they would teach this to all of our kids. God, I wish they would teach this to our kids, right? How to self-regulate, how to control.
Because that is really the key, right? Self-regulating.
Yeah, how to self-regulate, how to communicate effectively what you're experiencing.
Yeah, that social emotional component. As schools are beginning to incorporate that a lot more. Yeah. I would say that, but yeah, finally, it's like, okay, this is the core of it all. Yes. Really. It's like, never mind what grades are we getting in math and science and how great we can be in all those things. but how great can we be in soothing ourselves and self-regulating and, like you said, communicating effectively. Yeah. So yes. Wow, this is a lot. Like, it's so jam-packed, and it's like, it's something that you really have to sit down and really chew on all of this information, which is beautiful. It's a lot of great information. And I do hope that people really chew on it. It's very valuable. And thank you for doing this work. We do want to wrap this up by asking this one final question. What is your secret to a lasting, loving, happy marriage?
$1 million question.
Be the best of friends. I can answer that so quickly. Be the best of friends. Be the absolute best of friends. Your best friend you support. Your best friend. If they come up to you and give you this crazy ass idea of like what their plans are to rule the world, you're like, girl, your car or mine? Like straight up, like your car or mine? You're not talking them out of it. You're like, hell yeah. We'll figure out the plan as we're on the road, but let's go, right? Like right away, you're just as excited as they are. What I find with couples, especially married couples, they allow their fears to go ahead and then become their partner's fears. They now force those fears on them. And don't get me wrong, I totally get why. I mean, finances, you guys are sharing finances, you guys got kids, all of the things. Yeah. But honestly, I want you guys to take a look at your marriages and think about, when's the last time you actually had a deep conversation with your partner? Like, one of the questions, Willie, one of the last conversations we had, and it was like a deep one, I remember asking him, what would you say is holding me back from pursuing my dreams? And I remember him looking at me, and we were hiking, and it was on a cliff, and he started mentioning some of the things that, they're holding me, some of my fears. And as he's opening up and communicating and saying my fears, my insecurities out loud, girl, I was like, that cliff looks pretty nice for me to accidentally.
Like, what happened to Willie?
I'm like, I don't know what happened to Willie. We're going to hike. I was there. He was there. And then he just didn't make it back. No, it was like
but you know what? I love those honest answers because that's why we ask them of those people, because you're like, I know he's going to be honest with me and I'm ready for it. Bingo. That's how I am with my partners. Like when I'm ready to hear it, I'm like, you know what? Like I'm ready for the question because I know I'm ready for the answer because he's like that. He will give it to me how it is. Right? And I'm like, but I love it because I'm like, thank you. This is why. Because I feel like people like that, they have your best interest at heart, right? They have your back. Yep. They're not trying to like, oh, it's fine. Yeah, it's okay. You have time. You can it's like no. So
the real
deal.
That.
Yes,
the real deal, and that's what you want. That's a friendship, right? That's
bingo.
That's a friendship.
That is key to building up that strong friendship.
Yes. Wow. I feel so full, and I feel. This is so life-giving, honestly.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It really is. And thank you again for your time. And please do tell us and our listeners where we can stay in touch with you. It's so fun. It's so fun following you on Instagram, honestly. It's a blast. Your energy is like crazy. It's like so
I know you light everybody up.
Yeah,
you like
have this light about you.
Spark.
It's like when I look at you, I'm like, wow, she completely embodies this work that she does. And like, who else can do it? And thank you for your work. So do tell us.
Yeah, no, definitely. So you guys can follow me on Instagram, on social media. Hey, Veronica Cisneros. I do actually have a freebie for you guys. It's called The Marriage Predictor, and it's a free quiz. Just kind of see where your relationship is at right now. You don't have to be married to take it. But you guys can access that free quiz by going to veronicacisneros.org/quiz. quiz. Again, veronicacisneros.org/quiz. I also have a podcast, Empowered and Unapologetic. You guys can definitely listen to me there.
Oh my gosh. Your latest episode was all about, it was about marriage. Like I didn't get to listen to the whole thing yet. I'm going to listen to it today, but it was about how to, can you tell us the title?
It was definitely how to get your partner. I'm like forgetting the title myself. It's how to get your husband more involved in fixing your marriage.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. And it's an episode with Willie and I. Yeah, we're both on there.
Yes.
And that's great. It's great to bring a man into the conversation because obviously that makes a total sense. I love that.
I'm gonna make Wesley listen to it with me too.
Yeah, that would be great. I'm gonna tune in for sure. Definitely. So you heard it. That's where we can stay in touch. This has been an awesome conversation and a great start to my day.
Lucy and Nahal, thank you guys so very much for allowing me to be on your podcast, for listening to my story, from just providing this environment of learning and just growing together. There's not a lot of societies out there for us to really become empowered and unapologetic. And so to be uplifted by other women, it was truly a blessing. Let's be honest. We can all use a little help in our marriage, especially when it comes to communicating. I have created a guide just for you. 5 things that are killing your marriage, tips from a therapist. Find out if you are making these marriage mistakes. Ladies, this guide is 100% free. I will give you practical tips and easy to use strategies to apply right away. You all know I'm a huge advocate for couples. I am on a mission to help you and your partner experience stress-free living. With this free guide, we are setting our marriages up for success. But it starts with you. You will find this free guide here in the show notes or go to www.veronicacisneros.org. The information I will be providing you is next level, and people pay good money to get these tips that I will be giving you for free. Don't forget to share this with a friend. What's up, ladies? Just want to let you guys know that your ratings and reviews for this podcast are greatly appreciated. If you love this podcast, please go to iTunes right now, write a review, rate the episode, and subscribe. Don't forget to share it with your friends.
Hey there, this is Casey McGuire Davidson, host of the Hello Someday podcast. I'm an ex-red wine girl turned life coach who helps busy women change their relationship with alcohol. I spent 20 years climbing the corporate ladder while drinking a bottle of wine a night to unwind. In the Hello Someday podcast, my goal is to teach you the tried and true secrets of creating and living a life you don't want to escape from. Each week, I'll bring you tools, lessons, and conversations to help you drink less and live more. I'll teach you how to navigate our drinking-obsessed culture without a buzz and how to turn the decision to stop drinking from your worst-case scenario to the best decision of your life. You can find new episodes of the Hello Someday podcast every Thursday, wherever you listen, and I hope you check it out. Hey there, this is Casey McGuire Davidson, host of the Hello Someday podcast. I'm an ex-red wine girl turned life coach who helps busy women change their relationship with alcohol. I spent 20 years climbing the corporate ladder while drinking a bottle of wine a night to unwind. In the Hello Someday podcast, my goal is to teach you the tried and true secrets of creating and living a life you don't want to escape from. Each week, I'll bring you tools, lessons, and conversations to help you drink less and live more. I'll teach you how to navigate our drinking-obsessed culture without a buzz and how to turn the decision to stop drinking from your worst-case scenario to the best decision of your life. You can find new episodes of the Hello Someday podcast every Thursday, wherever you listen, and I hope you check it out.
Addiction impacts all of us. Addiction's consequences run through all of us. From ourselves to our loved ones and through our communities, addiction creates so much loss and grief. My name is Dwayne Osterlin, and I'm the host of the Addicted Mind podcast, a show featuring personal stories, expert guests, and vital information about addiction and addiction recovery. We'll talk with leading treatment providers to discuss the latest research and treatment options for this devastating disease and advocate for mental health awareness. We discuss topics like the importance of creating a community of support to helping loved ones to some of the latest research on psychedelic medicines. The Addicted Mind podcast has been about creating hope, listening to stories of many amazing people that have overcome addiction and are thriving. If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, subscribe to the Addicted Mind podcast wherever you get your podcasts, or check out theaddictedmind.com. New episodes every Monday. See you there.
I know we've been taught that motherhood requires alcohol. I know we've been taught not to question our relationship with alcohol until we've lost everything. And I know we've been taught that if we do dare to examine our relationship with alcohol, we need to head straight to AA and declare ourselves an alcoholic who is powerless to alcohol forever. But what if all that isn't true? That's definitely not my story. I'm Suzanne, the host of the Sober Mom Life podcast. I'm an influencer who stopped drinking in January 2020, and since then, I've been telling the truth about motherhood, influencing, alcohol, and sobriety. If you suspect deep down that glass or 3 of wine at night might just be making motherhood harder, well, you're right. Come and join me as I chat with other sober and sober-curious moms. Let's laugh, cry, and normalize sobriety together, all while we reheat our coffee for the 4th time today.
It's easy to blame ourselves for our struggles with alcohol. We see people around us being able to control their drinking without any consequences, yet no matter what we try, we can't seem to figure it out for ourselves. My name is Jillian Tietz, and I am the host of the Sober Powered podcast, where I use my biochemistry background to explain the latest research in addiction and help you understand both why you drink the way you do and how to develop the skills and mindset you need to find freedom from alcohol. I discuss topics like why we think about our drinking 24/7, why we have no off switch, and why we crave alcohol. If you're struggling with your drinking or you know someone who is, then I hope that you will check out the Sober Powered podcast. New episodes every Friday. See you there. It's easy to blame ourselves for our struggles with alcohol. We see people around us being able to control their drinking without any consequences, yet no matter what we try, we can't seem to figure it out for ourselves. My name is Jillian Tietz, and I am the host of the Sober Powered podcast, where I use my biochemistry background to explain the latest research in addiction and help you understand both why you drink the way you do and how to develop the skills and mindset you need to find freedom from alcohol. I discuss topics like why we think about our drinking 24/7, why we have no off switch, and why we crave alcohol. If you're struggling with your drinking or you know someone who is, then I hope that you will check out the Sober Powered podcast. New episodes every Friday. See you there.